So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Tonight we have a special guest from the UK, Arti Lal. She's going to be speaking this evening about resilience. So the theme is how to boost your inner strength and well-being. So Sister Arti is from the Inner Space in Covent Garden. She's the coordinator at the centre. They facilitate workshops and seminars for companies, corporations and communities throughout London. She's a very motivational and inspiring speaker. She's spoken and inspired thousands of people in London over recent years. She's actually been living a spiritual life for many years now, since she was quite young. And so she's actually got very deep insights about how to bring spirituality into practical life. She brings a lot of insight into this special topic, and she brings a lot of warmth and good humour into everything that she reflects upon and shares her insights about. So we look forward to hearing your insights on this topic about resilience, Sister Arti. And so now over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. What an intro. Now I have something to live up to. I wasn't expecting such a big intro, so thank you very much. Resilience, and I've been thinking about it a little bit, and this morning I rewrote my talk for you because it came to me that there's actually one thing that is essential for a sense of self that is unshakable and powerful, and all the habits come after that. So I'm going to talk about the day-to-day habits at the end of the talk, if there's time, but I really wanted to explore what it means to create that sense of self. But I'm going to start with one thing that has made the biggest difference to me. And it was a little bit of advice I was given when I first joined the Brahma Kumaris. I was 18, so yes, quite young. And I was advised by Sister Genti to do one thing each day. And it's been something that I did religiously for a good year or two and then dropped. But it's been something I've gone back to again and again as I've journeyed through self-discovery, knowing myself, understanding my potential, connect and my connection with the world and the universe, I guess. So, and this is the advice, and it's a little bit challenging, but it's something that has been the foundation of my personal resilience. And the advice was, ask yourself 3 questions each evening. And the first question is, what have I learned today? Second question, what have I seen in someone else that is positive or inspiring today? And then the last question, what did I do that was positive or inspiring today? At the time, I had no clue why it was so important. But what it did was keep my curiosity alive, keep my openness alive, keep the idea of possibilities and change alive and constructive. I didn't see change so much, and I don't see change so much as something that is difficult or overwhelming or unpleasant. I often see change as something that is opening up new horizons for me. And it's a fascinating thing that's the basis of our overall sense of resilience. So what is resilience? I guess for me, resilience is hope, belonging, choice. It is in action my toolbox of compassion, curiosity, and openness. It is the emotional and mental fitness that is needed in everyday life, where I can flex but not break. It's like being bamboo. I know who I am, what is meaningful to me, and yet there's an openness that allows that flexibility and ease in my awareness. So in practical terms, in everyday life, it's about finding the space between stimuli and response and choosing what to do with that space. In spiritual circles, people talk about awareness. Some people talk about positive psychology. They talk about it as a moment, a snap moment, that you can change the way you think or feel. Within the Brahma Kumaris, we talk about it as soul consciousness. It's that awareness of who I am. But it is really that space between the stimuli and also the response. And understanding that space, tapping into that space and choosing what to do with it. So this is the habit. Getting to do this is creating the habit we need to cultivate within us. So I want to tease this open a bit more, and it's resilience is understanding the emotions that we have, and that our emotions are there to help us. So when we feel fear, for example, and the current climate, London's going into its second lockdown tomorrow. So all the concerns, whether it's businesses, whether it's people being at home on their own, or being at home and having to take care of loved ones and do their work, all of those things that I'm pretty sure you guys would have experienced over there, but I know that our concerns over here, and mental wellness. So what is resilience? It's understanding that those emotions that we're feeling are actually there to help us. That the fear that we experience, and that it seems to be quite contagious, well, it's just our emotion trying to say, don't go that way. Instead, it's inviting us to say, be curious, be caring. It's about creating flexibility, which comes from being with ourselves in our completeness, our fullness, our positive, our negative, our strengths, our weaknesses, but to be with ourselves completely with compassion and curiosity, so we can live the life that is valuable and connected. So then the question occurs, if I'm not feeling resilient, why is that? Am I allowing the narrative that comes from the media or the concerns other people around us have, even gossip, own us? Or are our emotions owning us? You know, that sense of concern and not knowing, is that owning me? Or are we owning our narrative and emotions? What does that mean? Are we allowing ourselves to be empowered and connect in a way that we own what we're connecting with? So am I connecting with the fear? Am I connecting with loneliness? Am I connecting with stress? And is that what is the narrative dictating how I feel, how I see, how I choose to do things and make decisions? Or am I resilient enough to actually say, hang on, those are narratives, but the narrative I'm interested in is being empowered and connected. What's the narrative? And that's going to tell me whether I'm choosing to work from a space of resilience, or I'm choosing to allow the narrative to dictate my emotions and my feelings and my decisions. So we're going back to, in a sense, that stimulus and response and the space between it, looking for that space between it. Is the space the power to choose? Is it because it's in that space that we can choose growth and freedom? If we don't look for that space, we find ourselves perhaps reaching for our phones or our iPads and looking at things on social media, allowing that feeling of stress to grow, looking for the worst, understanding the worst, and allowing ourselves to wallow in that. And as we do that, we are shrinking the space between stimulus and response, that awareness. We are shrinking that awareness of choice, of empowerment, of resilience. And so you need to just check in. I need to check in again and again. What am I doing with my space? Am I expanding it? Am I choosing from a space? Am I creating my narrative from this awareness? If so, what I'm doing is opening myself up intentionally. I'm choosing to do things intentionally. Isn't that interesting? How many things do you do intentionally? Go for a cup of tea? How present are you with that cup of tea? Or is your mind elsewhere? Brush your teeth. How intentional are you? Or have you already started worrying about what the day will or will not hold? The more intentional I become as an individual, the more there is a basis of wellness that I'm creating. So the question to ask yourself again and again through the day, make it a habit to ask yourself, what am I doing with the space that I have right now? What am I doing? What am I choosing to do as an individual? If you do that, you're going to start addressing some of the things that we're dealing with right now. I know you're all out of lockdown now in Australia, and but social distancing is still a big part of our everyday lives. Masks are still a big part of our everyday lives, and so I'm going to suggest something. Instead of using the term social distancing, how about using the phrase meaningful connections? One of the biggest things that we're finding north, south, east, west is loneliness is playing a big role in our lives. And yet we know that we can be lonely in a crowd. We don't have to be lonely only when we're on our own. And so what is it signposting? What is loneliness signposting for me? It's telling me I need to have more meaningful connections. It's a signpost warning me what I need to do proactively, intentionally, rather than suppressing a feeling or wallowing in a feeling where I feel sorry for myself, or denying the feeling where I'm saying, it's not important, it's not good, it's not right, it's not positive, whatever. I need to listen to the signpost. I need to listen to the message and then ask myself intentionally, what's the next action for me? So how do I pick up and have meaningful connections? You can pick up the phone. Yeah, we know about this. We can learn to listen, really listen. One of the other methods that I find that the Brahma Kumaris offers, which is really very powerful, and it's been great. I don't know about you in Australia, but I know in London, because I've been going into inner space, which is in the heart of London, the West End of London, I've been using public transport. And you know, the lovely thing is, everybody's looking at each other. We're not just being polite and waiting for someone to get on and off the tube or the train or the bus. We're actually looking at each other and seeing each other. And within the Brahma Kumaris, this whole practice of drishti, looking at someone in the eye and seeing their qualities, their values, actually seeing the light of the being, of that awareness, and taking that time to have that connection. And it doesn't take long. You know, you don't have to sit for half an hour looking into somebody else's eyes. That's not what I'm recommending. It really is just that simple glance and seeing someone again and again. Having a conversation with a mask, a little bit of a challenge. Trying to read someone's expressions on their face, which is what we've done often in communication, it's got a little harder. But learning to see the living being, learning to see somebody and their qualities and their values, seeing their light, acknowledging them. I'm aware that in South Africa that there's a phrase that they use. I've been talking to some of my friends in South Africa, hence remembering it. And it's a phrase which says, I see you. And because I see you, you come into existence. You have that value in my heart for you. How often are we that open with each other, where we see each other and become aware of how important that person is and how valuable they are to me? And that includes strangers. I think I've been having some of the nicest conversations with somebody I'm very unlikely to meet again. It's incredible the fact that we actually see each other and practice seeing each other and making that meaningful connection. Resilience also invites us to actually look within and discover our courage, our curiosity, and our ability to care. East-West again, where I'm aware that people are being kinder to each other. Even though there is this emotional contagion and people are experiencing heightened anxiety and stress and worry, definitely that's on the rise. But at the same time, people are far more loving, caring. And so the question to ask yourself, another question to ask yourself and practice perhaps as a habit is my action, is what I'm doing helping me? Is it enabling me to touch base with the love, the care that exists within me? Does it help me look within and discover what's amazing about myself? Again, it's that space. You're filling that space of awareness. And as you fill that space with awareness, you're allowing yourself to step forward fully. You're not denying that there's any weaknesses or there's bad habits that need to be looked at or replaced, but it's actually asking you to say, yes, there's something quite amazing, and I'm taking the time to care for it. I'm curious to discover it, And it's that space which then gives me the courage to step forward and move forward in life. I'm just really aware that after I joined the Brahma Kumaris, I thought I had life pretty much simply planned out. I wouldn't need to do many things. I would be able to do the basics of everyday life and re-explore what it means to be me and really discover that. And that's why I joined the Brahma Kumaris, actually. And I found after a little honeymoon period, for want of a better term, where everything was very easy and there was no challenges and no obstacles, I found myself regularly in situations that were, for want of a better term, hot water, uncomfortable, overwhelming, challenging, and I was in those situations without a compass, nobody telling me how to do or deal with it. I was left to find an inner compass. And so I then found myself going back to being curious and open and creative and compassionate, because those were the things that were my north and allowed me to steer through every situation I was going in through. And I think at Inner Space, we've had some amazing opportunities and experiences, and we've reached out and did things that none of us thought was possible. But I'm just fully aware that when we first started Inner Space, I was invited to come on board for 6 weeks. 25 years later, I'm still here. So I was invited to come on for 6 weeks and set up office and just set up systems and things. And I said, yeah, I can do that. That won't take me long. It won't take me 6 weeks for sure. And then I started hearing, Daddy Janky say, oh, I'd like to see a venue for 500 people regularly. And back in the mid-90s, if you use the word meditation, people's shutters came down. People weren't interested, and people would quite happily, very politely say thank you and remove themselves. And here's Daddy Janky saying, I'd like to see an article every week. I'd like to, and Daddy Janky was our last administrative head, and she's just passed on in March. So she'd come up with these things. I think you should be working in companies. I think there should be a venue for 500 every week. I think, and it was like creating pies in the sky. Really, how is any of that possible when nobody's walking through the door? I remember the first time we had 15 people walk through the door of an Inner Space, and we celebrated. We got cake, we had a little party, the whole team came together. We'd finally got 15 people through the door. And then I'd come home and Daddy'd say, oh, so 500? Have you started planning on it? And you'd think, wow, how is this ever going to happen? And it was really just that curiosity. How is it going to happen? Not why is she so demanding, or why is she asking for the impossible? But it was, how is this possible? Have an article in the papers every week. Well, okay. Who's going to write the articles? How is that even possible? But that whole thing of how is that even possible? And that curiosity to open up and say, I just wonder how that would be for me. So to ask yourself again and again, is my action actually serving me? Is it helping me be loving, caring, and amazing for myself and others? It's not something that I think I would have thought of before I started Inner Space at all. But it's something that I've had to relook at and redefine for myself over the years again and again. And I'll just one quick story. I know we don't have much time. Oh dear. Um, there was a time where Dadi Prakashmani, she was the administrative head for the majority of my life within the Brahma Kumaris. And she was the one who inspired me extensively. And there was one night, this was before I joined the Brahma Kumaris. I'd actually gone to Mount Abu on my own and for the first time, just to explore what it could mean for me and whether I actually wanted to be a meditator or not. And I'd kind of come to the conclusion prior to going to Mount Abu that I actually didn't want to be a meditator, but I liked the people who lived there. So I wanted to say, hey, love you all. We'll stay in touch, but I won't be coming back again as a meditator. I'm not interested. And there was one evening that I found myself in Dadi Prakashmani's bedroom and just saying good night before we went to bed. And it must have been around 11 o'clock at night, so it was rather late. For those of you who know, we get up rather early to meditate, so it was rather late to be up at that time. And we'd been chatting and she was catching up with me and I was sharing thoughts and ideas. And it was a period when in Mount Abu, if you had 100 people, we were bursting at the seams. There was no extra space. We had people sleeping on the floor or mattresses on the floor and sleeping on the floor in sleeping dog style, one after the other next to each other. And she turned around and we were just chatting and suddenly this chap bursts into the room and he's in charge of accommodation and he starts yelling at Daddy and saying, do you realize we are full capacity? Daddy turns around and said, yes, absolutely, I know. He says, do you realize there's a train that's just pulled in and there's another 100 people coming up the mountain that nobody knew that was coming? Who's going to cook dinner at 11 o'clock at night? They must be hungry. Where are we going to put them to sleep? There are no extra beds. What are we going to do? And he was obviously overwhelmed. And he was quite harshly speaking to Daddy. And Daddy turned around and she said, I hear you. This is not an easy situation, is it? And he began to calm down and he said, no, it's very difficult and it's your fault. You don't tell these people that they're not allowed to come. And Daddy said, yes, maybe I should be telling people they shouldn't come. But it's very hard for me to do this. And she turned around and she said, you know, I remember you telling me that if we had more than 100 people, there was a solution. What was your solution? And what she did was very simply start to turn around and get him to come up with solutions. And within half an hour, meals were being cooked, beds were being laid out. But it was Dadi Prakashmani's resilience that impressed me superbly. She didn't get panicky. She didn't worry about anything. She actually turned around and trusted somebody else. So as my resilience grows, my trust in others also grows, which enables them to also have a greater sense of resilience. And I know that we've had our half an hour and I've actually only covered a slight bit of what I wanted to share. So that's going to teach me for next time, for sure, to be more concise. But I'm going to say this just to sum up. Look for the space that you have between a stimuli and a response. Learn to enjoy that space. Learn to discover your truth in that space. Ask yourself questions that empower you and make your actions intentional, caring, curious, and open. And you'll find that there is nothing that gets between you and joy in life. So that's how I'd like to sum up. A quick 1-minute meditation, I guess, for you. And I'm going to invite you just to take a deep breath. Watch your thought enter your mind. And before the response, just focus on that space, that stillness. And allow that response to emerge. Don't judge it, don't dictate it, just accept it. And now allow another thought to enter your mind. Allow your attention to be on this space. And allow that space to be peaceful or loving. And then allow a response to emerge. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. That was a beautiful talk this evening. I especially loved your warmth and your curiosity, which came through, how you shared your experiences and those really thought-provoking questions that I think you're also hinting at. We need to change our routines, like change our habit. What are we thinking? What are the questions that we're going to ask ourselves every day so that it actually helps us identify those actions that are helping us? And the way you approached it with such love and curiosity, but always so clear and stable. So thank you for being a beautiful example of this topic. And we're really looking forward to next week. I agree. It just feels like there wasn't enough time. We could have listened to you for much longer. So on behalf of all of our viewers, we're really looking forward to seeing you again next week. And thank you. And the topic for next week is, again, resilience, but with a special focus on bouncing back from setbacks and failure. So thank you again, Artie. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, everybody, for allowing me to share. I look forward to meeting you again.